This is Tim Ardar with The Beat, chatting with writer Ernie Altbacker about his new comics Kickstarter, Area 51. How you doing?
How you doing, Tamar?
Great.
Uh, Thanks for having me on. Yes, so I've been a kind of a long time writer, I guess, of animated shows, things like Batman Hush, Justice League Dark, I mean movies, the DC movies, I guess the animated features are where most people know me from, or some big shows like Spider-Man or the Green Lantern. And I've been itching to get into the world of comics. And uh I thought, oh, maybe I can get in with DC because I'm doing the DC movies, but they have their kind of own people. And I always thought making an indie comic would be like so much work, and it is. But finally, I said, man, I want some of these ideas to see the light of day. So Area 51 Studios says that Area 51, everything you've heard about it isn't true. Actually, Area 51 is a studio lot where your cheaper alien producers come to make their galactic reality TV shows. And so they go over there because Earth is basically a cheap place to shoot a show. And it's kind of a behind the scenes look at Alien Hollywood. I posit that it's where Hollywood got the idea, was from this thing actually, and there's some crossover with aliens and stuff and Hollywood, and it's kind of a tone of, if you like shows like The Studio by the new Seth Rogen show, or a little bit dating myself, the Larry Sanders Show, mixed with Men in Black, with some Monty Python weirdness thrown in. You know how they used to do kind of like horror and death and a lot of blood, but it wasn't really to be taken seriously. This is kind of what I'm doing. If that's your kind of bag, certainly anyone. I've written a novella about this years ago, and I tried to do the tone of Douglas Adams, which is really tricky. I thought it would be a great experiment to do, and it was both a great experience and experiment. And some people that read it say they came out pretty good. So now we're going to do the comic version. I'm working with a great artist named Josh White. I met him at Comic Con at the comics creator panel, comics creator connection, mixer, I guess. It's kind of speed
Hmm.
dating for writers and artists. And we kind of hit it off. And we launched on the second. We're 5 days in so far, doing pretty good. And I'm really enjoying the process.
It's funny, you mentioned earlier wanting to break into DC. I know you a few years back when they were doing the DC Future State stuff, like Jim Sheridan, Jeremy Adams, and a whole bunch of people from DC Animation they brought in. I know you did a few stories there. Not so I'm really curious, was that really your first time? Obviously, you're a fan of comics. A lot of people in animation are, but was that really your first time writing for the comics medium?
Um, I think I'd done a story in a Nico and the Sword of Light when they had a
Mhm.
comic they were going to give out at San Diego Comic Con. And then I did one for DC that was a Guy Gardner Green Lantern Corps story, and it got put into inventory
Hmm.
because the editor that was there left and a new editor came on, and it's like, oh no, that's not what I planned. And then I did get to do that one. It was only one 10-page story in Green Lantern Future State, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. Clayton did the art. Henry Clayton, is that right? I didn't speak with him, but boy, it turned out really well. And then that got me another kind of tryout where I did a 2 issue Suicide Squad that was it the lead was Captain Boomerang, which is a character that I really like. And then that editor went off and did something else, and that got put into
Oh my God.
inventory. So I've been stymied. I've been stymied to getting into DC, but sometimes that happens. Can't complain. Overall, can't complain. I've got to do a number of wonderful things.
It's funny. I know people who go from screenwriting to comics writing. It's a whole different animal and beast.
Absolutely.
Famously, Kevin Smith in the late 90s when he began with Daredevil, he kind of overwrote, he famously wrote too much. And so the editors had to really teach him to, write less for the comics medium. For you, was there any kind of learning curve, or did you find it much easier than you anticipated writing for a new medium like comics?
First of all, I'm going to have to say there is no such thing as too much Kevin Smith writing. I love it. I would have read it. He could have jammed that panel full. It could have just been panels full like a book. And I'd be like, this is great. Oh, I see an elbow there. That was all that remained to be drawn. That was all the space he left. But you know what? This is a really gripping story. No, actually, I think sequential art comic panel writing is the hardest writing to do to strike that balance. It takes me the longest out of I've written I've written kids books. I mean, so I've written books and novellas, so prose.
Mhm.
Screenplays is kind of the first thing I got involved with. Heck, I even know playwright format. Uh, Writing comic books is hard to do well. I mean really hard to get stuff through to the artist without stifling their creativity is the balancing act. And but I also find it very fun. But it just sometimes it gets very disheartening where it's like I've been in and around the computer for 8 hours and I've got 3.5 pages, of comic. I might have written 5 or 6 with all these little dings and dangs and banners and stuff. And I'm like it's a complex panel. I gotta figure it out, But it's a really enjoyable process, and I like it. And right now I'm doing it, on this Area 51 studio show. We're actually farther ahead. We actually are pretty much done. I mean, we're done with issue 1 as far as the art, but we have a draw you in section in our Kickstarter. So we've already sold 3 of those. So now I know
Oh.
we got to change 3 panels to get 3 people in, and we still have 1 left. And then we got to put the extras on there, but those extras are kind of penciling, and we're going to do something actually kind of interesting for the process junkies among the people. Is that we want to put in a couple of pages of the novella, uh, that's going to the story part of which would come out in issue 2, and we're going to show the inks of those pages. And those, so it's kind of a preview to issue number 2, but it's not finished. So if you buy issue number 2, you'll see the finished product. So you can see how it's changed from the novella pages, how Josh and I have worked together to make something slightly different, keeping a scene here, but different dialogue and stuff. He's excellent. He's not only an artist, he's has some funny lines of like some he bust a gut in issue number 1 with one of his lines. I'm like, we got to put that in. So yeah, sorry
No
to
problem.
ramble.
No problem. It's funny, you mentioned the studio before. I also love it. It's funny. Very much, I think it's safe to say media the last few years, it's in a very fluid place, to put it
Yep.
mildly. And
Whoa. Yeah.
yeah, I think the studio really, it's brilliant and it really touches upon some of the absurdities of what's going on in the business right now. As I'm sure, as a journalist and fan, I definitely appreciate. And for you, as a professional writer, I'm sure it really resonates for you. For Area 51 Studios, this comic, I'm really curious if you've been able to tap in to what's, or you use it as a way to tap in to what's the current media landscape.
Well, this story is from the novella, so the major plot line where we're going to get to in the four issues, and I think it's a really cool story. That's kind of set. We are going to put in on the side. We just kind of sometimes jam these panels full with stuff that's going on in the background that you'll hear a snippet of that represents some of those things. But yes, going forward, we want to do some of that stuff, but more the absurdities and not the horrible realities of, say, the Weinstein stuff. Like that is not our area, right?
Yes.
Um, yeah, like I said, yeah, the behind the scenes of Larry Sanders, of how big of a gift to give a person that might be above or below you on the totem pole, and you're like, you just sweat over it, and it's just kind of humorous. And to a regular person, they would go, "Oh my God, just do this." It's so obvious. And I mean, in Hollywood, sometimes you're just like, you're just sweating over an email, like, okay, how will this be read? You know? Like I gotta make sure, you know what? I gotta put in a couple of winky emojis and a laughing thing here to make sure they don't think that I am saying they've done something. You know?
So obviously this is your first Kickstarter for any kind of comics, doing it yourself. That's always a learning, like I said, a learning curve. There's so much, it's one thing to be a fan and read comics, it's another thing to actually produce your own comics. I think there's so much of the process, like you just mentioned earlier, inking, penciling, and even lettering. That's a huge part of it that I appreciate, but I know nothing about. I can't letter a book. I have to save my life. So for you, what's been it like learning the process of producing a comic, stuff you already knew or stuff you've learned for the first time for this Kickstarter?
Um, yeah. Well, I wouldn't have been able to do it. People have been asking, telling me for years, you have these great ideas that are too weird for any of the streamers or studios, but they're great. You should do this as a comic. And it was just such a big firewall of, well, how do I get those people together? And I got to find four
Hmm.
different people.
Hmm.
And so when I finally decided to do it, and I stumbled upon Josh White, and he was like, "Oh no, no, I'd like to do the entire thing." I was like, "Yes, yeah." I don't want to coordinate all that stuff. So he does literally all the art. In fact, I have the novella there, and I was like, "Is there any way we could put some?" Well, he had shown me something, and he's like, "I did this over a weekend, like a 10-page comic, but it was in black and white." He's like, "Black and white goes a lot faster. So it's shaded. It looked really good." And I go, "Is there any way I could get like 10 or 20 full-page drawings for the novella?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can do that." And he did it. So he's going all over the place, formatting stuff. He runs a graphic design,
Hmm.
so he knows a lot of stuff. And it
Oh.
was when first we were doing a comic book proposal, and we were going out to people and not getting, that much
Oh.
of a thing. And then a year ago, he's like, "We got to do this or not." And I can handle the Kickstarter stuff because I am
Oh.
like Abe Simpson with the computer. I'm lucky I can make it work for Final Draft, the screenwriting program, and Word not very well. But so he was handling all of that. Now I have to get better because I'm having to do more posting because he, I know more of the people such as yourself that I can get it to. He's a civilian that has an artistic talent, but he lives in Arizona. He hadn't done a comic like this way either. He's done some book covers and some animated stories, yes, but nothing like getting into the business. And he's ready because his kids are a little bit older now. Before it was just like, let's put that dream aside and make sure the graphic design company gives us enough money to eat, as everybody does
Yeah.
sometimes, right? By the way, we didn't to the audience, we did not call each other and say, let's get these sea blue shirts or sea
Yeah.
shirts.
I
I
know.
can't believe I saw this in the back of my closet. I'm like, man, I haven't worn this in years. I'm gonna slap this on, and it's like we were matching
I
or
know. Like,
something.
so,
Well, there you go. So I hope that answered your question.
definitely. It's funny. We were just, mentioning, talking about, I was going to ask you about other potential publishers bring it out. But also, like I said, media is a very fluid place, especially in comics. Not to get too into current events, but I'm sure everyone after the tariff announcement, every business was scrambling, very
Oh yeah.
concerned. Thankfully, I know some other people, their books, thankfully, the pause did happen because I know people like they got their books out just in time because they almost had to cancel projects or they did cancel projects because of the tariffs. For you, we were talking about, I'm sure right now, keeping aware of, as a creative writer, thankfully, you can just focus on the creative aspect. But now running a Kickstarter, you kind of have to be in the know or the business stuff and the money financials. I'm curious if when the tariffs did hit, was there a cause for concern about, oh, we might have to cancel this or delay it further?
You know, I was, but it wasn't really my field, right? Like this is Josh will handle that. And the thing was, one of the people that we got recommended several printers that do Kickstarter comics specifically for artists that we met with and liked and know. And and the one that we like the best actually is in Florida, and he does the printing there in Florida. So we knew we weren't going to be affected by that. So it didn't really, we were just going to plunge forward anyway, though. That because we were too far into it. We had already told too many people. It's like it's coming out, it's coming out. And so like, let's just go. You
So it's funny. For those who know, I'm sure you might remember, we've actually done press junkets for the various DC animated projects over many times. It's funny. I remember one junket, I think for Injustice or one project, I commented how you seem to be getting you at the time got so many dark projects.
Oh
Looking
yeah.
back from Justice League Dark, Hush, Injustice, but it kind of for those who don't are aware of your work, you are very talented in comedy. I think you actually did was it Dick's, your last project, your live action project.
Yeah.
I think you kind of joked about how it was kind of nice to do something more comedic for a change.
That's not, by the way, I'm not taking any credit for the title. It's about two bumbling private detectives. So it's called Dicks. You really have to say the sentence. You can't just say you wrote something called Dicks. It leads to at least judgment, by people. But yeah, and you're leaving out. Remember, there was that little section. It didn't really include Batman Hush, although killing off the Riddler and munching him in the machine didn't help. But it was Justice League Dark Apocalypse one.
Right. Oh man.
That followed by Constantine House of Mystery, which has a lot of killing in it, and deaths of old Constantine. And then following that with Injustice was like, what the hell? Ernie's like the Reaper.
Yeah.
Like, just like mowing down superheroes. But hey man, they were all Elseworlds. They're all ready. They're all fine. They're all fine.
So kind of like that for Area 51, like for people who just follow, like don't pay attention to your work as a whole, they might think, oh,
Yes.
this is unusual. This kind of dark guy is doing something comedic, but no, like this is totally in your wheelhouse. For you as a creator, do you ever feel like pigeonholed or maybe have a perception of, like at times, like, oh no, you're like you said, you're the Grim Reaper guy. No, you're really a comedic guy. Is there one that you prefer? Or like stretch or particular writing muscles you like stretching more than the others?
I think any kind of genre writing, fantasy, sci-fi, horror, I really like that stuff. Usually, naturally, whatever I'm writing, I can't write well, not that I can't. It just starts I get that Lethal Weapon or Alien stuff in there where you can get a huge belly laugh from, say, Hudson. The character's like, put her in charge, or um, or in Lethal Weapon, Riggs is funny. He's also suicidal and psychotic sometimes, but he's funny, he's engaging. So I have that naturally. And sometimes if I'm writing on a project where they want it more serious, like Alan Burnett and James Tucker, and the director, whose name I'm forgetting, uh, they kind of pulled out a lot of those lines from Batman Hush because they're like, no, we want it to be like drama and stuff, and so they can't be like cutting up, right? Uh, but I like doing it all. I guess sometimes you get pigeonholed in you do a lot of animated stuff, and but I have feature film scripts as samples, right? I've gotten a couple of them done, your lower budget feature films. It seems to be not mattering as much anymore for me, as long as it's a dark comedy or a horror. Low budget stuff is kind of coming my way. So I hope to get more of it out there. But I'm writing that kind of stuff too. So live action, low budget movies, either kind of action. I mean, the Dix thing is it is bloody, but it's also funny. So I'm proud of that one. It We're hoping that it's going to play in a couple film festivals in the LA area, so I can bring some friends out. But the United States also would be nice. I think it's in Europe in a couple festivals
Hmm.
coming up, but they're starting to ramp up to put that out.
Uh, Kind of touching upon, we just did animation, which is a field you've worked extensively on. It seems like I mentioned earlier how media is in a very fluid space. Animation is also in an interesting space. It's not, I wouldn't say a recession, but definitely it's changed remarkably post-pandemic. It seems there's not as much, there is still animation, but it's not in a place like it was before. There definitely seems to be an emphasis on established IP as opposed to original IP.
Yeah.
Is that something, I guess you're as a
You
person
can
who's
you
working in
can
animation?
say you can say seems to be in a recession, or you can say giant dumpster fire.
Yes.
Um, Now, I mean, yes, in the pandemic, all of a sudden they went full bore on animation projects, and that was good. None of that did fall my way. I wasn't doing a good show, a 26 episode show or something. That kind of passed me by. Then we hit the strike. Okay. And then there was multiple strikes. First, I forget now. First the WGA, then the Animation Guild strike, and it just killed it. The Even the stuff that we got, that there's got to be you know definite staffs, minimum staffs for the amount of episodes you get. It's like, okay, well, we're just not doing we're not doing those shows anymore, right? We're not doing them here. We'll do them in Europe, so we don't have to have staffs. So it by winning some of the points, they just the studios just changed the game and eliminated the stuff that we would get when we won for a lot of shows. All of that stuff is down. So it's really tough. I see there's some signs of life of it coming back, and I hope it does. But, I mean, I'm preparing to go different ways. I've got a dual citizenship. During the pandemic, I finally got that together. Um, so now I have an EU passport, and I will count for points in those productions in Europe, animated or live action, because I have an address there.
Hmm.
So um, if I have to do that, I have to do that. But I hope it comes back. I certainly, enjoy where I live here, and I enjoy meeting all the people from the industry. It's nice. I'd rather not move away. We'll see.
So wrapping up soon. So after Area 51 Studios, any other comics ideas or other projects you're tinkering with or thinking about?
Well, this will be a four issue thing, and then we will gather it up into a trade paperback or a graphic novel that should be 100 to 110 pages of story and 20 to 30 pages of extras. And so what I did want to tell you is that um, we are doing these exclusive stickers. Okay, so anybody who listens here, if you're into that sort of thing, um, if you do a printed book, if you take a look at Area 51 Studios and you're like, boy, that's right up on my alley. If you do a printed book or novella, you will get a set of exclusive stickers that won't be available to anybody else. But you have to go on the board, the project, the Kickstarter board, and write hashtag comics beat, and leave a comment, please, something, other than something nice would be okay, but that's not a requirement. You could say you're an ass for doing this, but hashtag comics beat, because that's the only way I will know that you want the stickers. If you don't put the comment on there, then it could just be somebody that knows of me or follows me in a different way. So the Josh says they're going to be really cool, and so that's a little extra bonus. In answer of what we're going to do in the future, I do have. I mean, there is a DC animated that I had done a long time ago, and I can't really say anything, but it might be coming out at the end of the year finally.
Hmm.
So I'm hoping it would be announced at Comic Con, maybe. Uh, I think it will be announced at Comic Con because there'll be a panel. So when those panels get accepted, or and the thing comes out, the schedule comes out, people are going to see it and go, "Oh my God, we're talking about this thing for a long time." And I saw it, and it turned out great. So the one that I wrote, so can't tell you anymore. I'm not even telling you the title. So that is coming out. I worked with my good friend John Semper, who I wrote Green Lantern, Beware My Power. Wrote that movie with John Semper. He was my first boss on Spider-Man. He's got a new show coming out later in the year, preschool, called Weather Hunters on PBS, starring Al Roker. And I think that's going to be a fantastic show. And I think Lego, I was on Lego Dreams season 3, and I believe those just dropped now. So that's also a worthwhile watch. Um, And I guess in the comics world, Josh has a great idea. He's got these characters, these frog characters, salamander characters. Take a look at his art. I think it's at JW Illustration or illustrations.com, but Josh White. Um, I know there's a lot of Josh Whites, so you got to kind of dig through there. but but since he helped me out with mine, this was my novella that was sitting in a drawer. He helped it bring bring it to life. I said, "Hey, whatever idea is nearest to your heart, we'll do that one next." So, if you see some of his drawings, you'll see. When I saw him, I'm like, this is a show. This is a show. So it's definitely a comic. Um, so we hope to do that. So there. Sorry, I'm rambling on again.
It's
Gotta.
happened. This has been great. I know I could go on forever, but I have to let you go soon. But Ernie, it's been an immense pleasure. So much amazing projects I'm excited about. Congrats on Area 51 Studios. I hope hopefully it will get fully funded. I hope to see it continue.
And just saying, I would say everybody should just poke around Kickstarter, support indie comics. The way we're going to get more weird comics, more comics that it is really tough to get past the gatekeepers at even the biggest independent comic book publishing companies. So if you go on there, even if I know you can't, if you have a bunch of friends in the industry, you can't spring for five printed books a month. It's like a
Mhm.
big bill. But the digital copies are kind of a bargain at $5, $5 for a digital novella. But even if you want to throw in $1 to somebody, you don't have to think. Somebody told me it's like, well, I think I really beat cheap. They're going to think like, oh, I just gave them $1. Oh no, the complete opposite. You're helping the algorithm. Right on project walls for other people that or ones that just like this looks cool. You don't even have to donate anything, and that helps the algorithm push up the indie comic, and it might lead to two or three backers to get on board because now they've seen it. So it's really important to do those small things and back it for even $1, you know. So I would encourage people to do that for there's so many great ideas, there's so many great indie comics out there, and where it is the most happening, I think, is Kickstarter. So
Awesome.